This is Burnett with the Buyer's Box podcast, a podcast focused on agent-facing content for all the agents out there in the world that are following. Today we have a very special guest. We have Brooke from Reside. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? Thank you for having me, Allie.
Thanks for coming on. Brooke has helped us so much with our team. Reside has helped us so much with our team. And today we're really going to focus on something that I think a lot of agents struggle on is transaction management. And Brooke is the
Yeah.
queen of that. So Brooke, can you tell a little bit about your background with transaction management?
Yeah, absolutely. I always joke that I've been in real estate and have been in like the transaction world my whole life, or for 30 years, because my dad's always been in the business for my entire life. So, I was on the phone calls, at the closings, at the showings, in a bassinet when I was young. So it's always kind of been ingrained in me, even when I didn't want it to. I remember saying to my dad specifically when I was in college, like, I will never get into real estate. And then, of course, here I am. To speed up a little bit, I actually started as an agent myself on my dad's team, and was essentially it was just him and I. So even though we were a team, I was still very much operating as a solo agent, because he was so kind of advanced in his craft that he was like, I don't even know where to start. So I kind of learned a lot of things just by following him around and picking it up on my own. But eventually got into the operations side as we continued to bring agents onto this team and grow the team. So at that point, it was a natural kind of move that I was going to then be helping with the transactions and managing what we were doing there with the team. So we ended up growing to about, I think at our max, we were at 15 agents. And then we were with a different company aside from Reside previously before I had joined Reside. I was with a different company, an expansion team where we had different locations. So I also, as my dad was expanding into different areas, including Myrtle Beach, actually, I started helping manage transactions with his teams in Myrtle Beach and Wilmington, as well as helping some other leaders in Virginia and Florida, and some different areas. So being in the different types of leadership in the different states and things, it really taught me and different agents and clients. It really taught me very quickly how the transaction management process should go, and honestly how it shouldn't go. Definitely made my fair share of mistakes, but that's how I learned.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And I always tell
Yeah.
our TC department that transaction management is very much, so my background in Mercedes, our TC, her background is in hotels. And so it's very much a hospitality sort of job and a role. And I think oftentimes real estate agents don't think of it that way. So I really want to kind of focus on the hospitality of it all. So Brooke, let's take a time machine back. And you were a brand new agent, you were just getting started, and now you're starting to run your own transactions. What would you say to that agent, and how could they possibly get their life together now?
Yes, absolutely. And first of all, I think what I want to say to agents is don't overwhelm yourself. Don't worry. Don't freak out. I remember very much feeling that when I stepped in from, just my first, as an agent, my first transactions, not even, when I was a transaction coordinator and was doing it for other people, but as an agent myself, when I had more than one transaction going on at once, I was like, oh my gosh, now everything's out the window. How many keep track of this? And I think what I want to tell agents is really just start simple. It doesn't have to be this big, complex system. You don't have the time for that. If you are producing and you are or actively trying to get in production, you don't have the time to fully run as a transaction manager. However, you do have to manage your own transactions. So I really think that the first step, if you are starting anywhere, would be if you have a short amount of transactions or nothing just yet, is really just thinking about and understanding the flow of the deal. So really understanding and this is even goes for transaction managers that are brand new as well. Really understanding that whole flow. So that general path of, okay, the offer is accepted, then we have earnest monies due, and then inspection, appraisal, loan approval, closing. That's really your backbone. And then from there, you can kind of build out a basic checklist of what would need to happen at each stage. And then from there, so that's really, again, step one is just understanding what's that flow. What are those main kind of milestones throughout the transaction that we need to be aware of? And then after you have that, I think you can really start to layer in that step of getting ahead of communication, which is a big key piece for agents that I think is missed. So even if they are highly successful, they are running multiple transactions at once on their own. I think where I see the biggest piece fall through the cracks is getting ahead of communication. So what this looks like is waiting until a client asks you what's going on. Like, hey, I haven't heard from you. What's happening this week? Where are we at with inspection? Where are we at with appraisal? So really, you want to know that flow and know those milestones so you can get ahead of it and set expectations. Because you're removing that anxiety from your clients or removing the need and for yourself, by the way, because nothing's more anxious. Allie, like nothing's more anxious as an agent when you have a client that is freaking out and like, what's going on? This is all a mess. Like they're having anxiety because they haven't heard from you. They don't know what's next. They don't know what's going on. So they're freaking out because it's also a very stressful time in their life. It's exciting, but it's also very stressful. And then that then, puts it on to you and you're taking on that energy and feeling like, oh my gosh, the world's falling apart right now. So the more you can get ahead of that communication and setting out about those expectations, the better that you can, and the smoother the process is going to be for you. So really setting really in the presentation, this should be the conversation of, okay, here's our next steps. We're going to, start looking at homes, getting really clear on what they're looking for. So you can reduce the time needed for them and for you to have to be looking at 30 homes over the weekend. Getting really really clear on what they're looking for and finding them just a short list of what meets that criteria, but also, hey, once we go under contract, here's what's going to happen. You have earnest money due. Here's what that is. Here's why it's important. Here's what's going to happen with that earnest money, where it goes, when you're going to see it again, which is going to be, for the most part, on your closing statement. Here's where it needs to go. Next, we're going to get into inspections. I always, as an agent, I always told my clients, hey, you are hiring your inspector because to look at all the problems, to look at everything. So, because if you don't, you get that 40-page inspection report and it's like, oh my gosh, this house is a piece of trash. When it's like you are hiring, when that's not the case. That's totally normal. You are hiring that inspector to find the problems, to locate every possible little issue that could be something. So setting that expectation of, hey, you are going to get this 40-page document, maybe more, maybe less, does not mean that this house is a piece of trash. And
Right.
it does not mean
Non-invasive
that,
too.
yeah.
We stress
And
that. We're like, it's a non-invasive inspection.
yes, exactly. Like you hired a good inspector if you got a 40-page document because they're looking at everything for you. And it might be 40 pages of, hey, everything's great and everything looks awesome. But and also setting expectation of, hey, there might be 40 different things that come up as a yellow or red flag. It might not be reasonable that we ask for all of these items to be fixed. Here are the main ones that if it comes up, we might want to address. So really setting that expectation ahead of time, because that's a big stopgap in the transaction process that could throw everything off or just completely kill a deal, is that inspection and the anxiety and the back and forth over what exactly is going to be fixed. So as much as you can remove and set expectation for, remove the friction ahead of time, the better. And then I always say that the next like stopgap of like this could really kill the deal would be an appraisal. So also setting up that expectation of, hey, okay, after inspections, once we're feeling good there, we're going to move on to the appraisal. Here's what that is. Here's why we're doing that. Again, the lenders and the loan companies want to make sure that their investment is good and is valid. They don't want to loan you, $300,000 when the house is worth $20,000. So I've never seen that quite of a gap, but I'm sure that happens. I would have seen big gaps, but um, they want to protect their investment like you would as well. So there's a couple different ways this could happen, or the results that could come from this appraisal. One, it's either at the value or above. Awesome. Their investments protected. We're good to go. No issues. Or let's say it's low. It comes back low. We do have some options there. It's not the end of the world. And that's another piece where if you don't set the expectation, they see it come back low. They're like, oh, not buying this house. It's not worth it. There's options that we have, and it could be maybe the seller is paying the difference, or hey, asking the buyer if you're working on the buyer side or the seller side, really asking your client if this does come under, or is it a possibility that you can meet the difference or meet partial the difference? And then I've seen it where maybe the buyer is covering the difference, or the seller is covering the difference, or they reduce the price, or I've also seen it where they meet in the middle and say, okay, for have a $10,000 gap, buyer side and seller side have agreed that they're going to meet in the middle at 5,000 each. So again, presenting those options ahead of time, like it's already happening, just so if it does, the worst case scenario, if it does happen, they're not freaking out. They know you've got option A, B, C, and D that you have. It's not the end of the world. And then if it goes great, then great. You are smooth sailing. And then just really prepping for the closing and what to expect there as the moving logistics are actually happening, utility change, all of that information. So all that to say
Mhm.
is really setting the expectation up front with the clients to make sure that you are saving them time and energy of worrying what's going to happen, and also for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've talked through this, I think in the ebook that we'll release after this episode, we can put some scripts in there that you can use with your clients. And of course, you want to say them, in your own way that feels natural to you and you don't, seem like a robot. As you
Right.
continue to sell more real estate, like one thing that we've noticed, and I think Andrew does a great job at when we're at showings, if we're noticing that somebody's getting pretty serious about a property and maybe we're seeing some leaks on the ceiling, or maybe we're noticing that this property is very, very unique. Of course, as a professional real estate agent, you can't, speak to those things because that's not what you're licensed in. But you can kind of start setting those expectations of, hey, just so you know, typically with properties like this, we see that it's potentially may not come back at the appraised value that you want to offer, because prior to showing someone, hopefully, a property that they're very serious about or putting in the offer, you're going to pull those comps. So those are going to be similar comps that the appraiser is going to use, and that's something that we can talk about. So you want to make sure that even before you're putting the offer in, that you're pulling that data, because when you pull the data, that's the information that you can use to explain to the client and say, hey, based off 123 Sesame Street and 125 Sesame Street, the home you want to buy at 124 Sesame Street, it's possible that it may come back at blank. I'm not an appraiser. However, like, this is something I want you to think about as we go through this transaction. I know that you said that you love this home because of motivation, 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 because you really wanted to live on the same street as your favorite daughter, Brooke. And
Right.
if this did not appraise, do you have a plan in place, or would you be willing to bring additional funds to the table? What would that look like? Because you want to
Yes.
plant the seed. The main thing is
Yes.
planting the seed.
Exactly. And if you never have to water it, great. Like, you know what I mean? But like exactly like you just said, and that is perfect. A great example of the data showing showing the logistics there. There's no emotion behind it. There's no, well, I feel like I saw this house by passing by, and I saw this house. And in comparison, like this is what I feel or what I think, like the data, you can't, there's no emotion behind it. It just is what it is. And so you are prepping of, based on what we're seeing here and what the past comps have shown, this is very likely that we're going to fall in this line. So how are we going to prepare for that if that is the scenario?
Correct. And one thing I want to tell all the agents out there is that we focus a lot on lead conversion on this podcast, and that's a very important part of it because that's ultimately what gets you in front of the person. And then after that, you're going to work with your leadership or your team owner, or maybe figure it out on yourself by yourself. I don't know, but how to get the how to open up the door and get the person under contract. But ultimately, the transaction coordination part of the deal is the last 50%. So, the beginning part is super exciting because they're like, oh, I'm buying a house, I'm buying a house. I'm excited to buy my house
Yeah.
because of whatever. And then they're at the emotional height where they're like, it's mine, it's my house. But then after it's under contract, that's when it kind of hits the fan because
Yes.
that's when it becomes real. That's when the money's coming out of their bank account or they're shuffling their 401k or whatever they got to do.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you're very professional during this stage because ultimately, my own personal opinion, I think this is what people will remember about you because this is the part of the transaction that costs them the most money and time. And sometimes the second part of the transaction could be double or the same amount of time as the time that you talked to them, depending on when you got them on the phone and how long it took them to make that decision. And that's where you're going to leave it off with them. And I want to talk a little bit about, okay, so you got the house under contract, you ran through the transaction coordination portion. We'll upload a checklist of everything that should be on your list. Obviously, it varies state by state. And the transaction is closed. Talk to me a little bit about what are some things that you can do post transaction?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I think that's another piece where agents can easily miss because it's like kind of out of sight, out of mind type of thing. Like, great, now we're done with it. I don't have to
Got
worry
my
about it
check.
anymore. Yeah, exactly. Got my check by, and clients feel that. They feel that. And imagine yourself as a client, like where you try to put yourself in their shoes where they just had this support from you. Um, you know, so consistently for a good amount of time. Sometimes, I mean, I've been in deals. This is more like if it's a short sale foreclosure, but sometimes there's been deals where it's like 6 months, of us working to closing. Um, Average, you're looking at probably 1 to 2 months, but
Sure.
still it could be up to that. And they're relying on you, and you have built that relationship. And all of a sudden, you just drop off, one day, and you just kind of ghost. They feel that of, hey, this person just kind of almost like a feeling of, hey, this person just kind of used me for the check in a way, to get that. Now they don't have any interest. So you want to keep that relationship going afterwards. Of course, you don't have to be checking in with them every day like you were previously during the transaction, but at least reaching out, of course, the day of closing. Thank you, thank you. Um, sharing your experience with them. You can highlight them on social media, take a picture together. You can give them a closing gift, whatever your process is there. You want to have some sort of thank you, even if it is just verbal or a handwritten letter or something along those lines. So thank you so much. But also, within the first week, you want to make sure that you're following up with them. Hey, did you guys get in okay? Did moving go okay? Anything I can do? Sometimes they'll move in and then all of a sudden something breaks right away. I just had a friend that just went through that and moved in 2 days later. He spent $11,000 on fixing electricity.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and I don't. It doesn't sound like he's been able to really even get a hold of his agent to talk through what an option is there. So, um, checking in within that first week. Hey, how's everything going? How are you enjoying the home? Making sure they're feeling comfortable and there's nothing that no big fires, not literally, hopefully, but no big fires that have happened during that first week. Also, it's a great opportunity once you have that closing, to you remind them about a review and referral as well. I always say this is kind of like a more of like my operation kind of like tricks or best practices. Throughout the transaction, even the beginning, you want to mention reviews and referrals. Like, hey, my commitment to you is to be give you such 5-star service that you want to leave us a review and you want us to refer you. You want to refer us to your friends. So you want to set that up really at the beginning of, hey, this is my promise to you. I call it the promise script. It's not mine. I apologize to forget who actually came up with that, but that's the promise script essentially. It's I promise you such great service, like such 5-star service that you're going to want to leave a review and tell your friends about us. And so it's always a good thing where you can bring it back around there at the end, and ask for that review and referral. And again, we can provide the scripting around what that actually looks like, and um, how to follow up on reviews and things like that, more detail. Um, but what you're looking for is you're continuing the relationship. You're also, and by the way, it doesn't stop with just the 1 week. You want to make sure you maybe once a month after that, if once every other month as it keeps going, you're checking in with them. Hey, how's everything still going? Reaching out to them a year later, or continuing years on their closing anniversary. Hey, you've been in the house 5 years now, and so forth. You're keeping in front of them because what you're doing is you're building that connection. So you can have repeat business from them of let's say they want to, it is 5 years and they're ready to move again. They just had their third child and they need something bigger now. Guess who they're going to think of? You, the person that helped them previously, and is still on top of reaching out to them. I think agents listening to this that's been in business for a little while can relate to you had a closing and then maybe you might follow up with them, a way later, and then they're like, "Oh, I just bought a house with a different realtor." It's because they didn't hear from you.
The
They
different
didn't.
realtor is us. We're buying the online leads. So
Yeah,
the moment your past client is online looking up Myrtle
yeah,
Beach homes for sale, Allie and Andrew are calling.
exactly. So don't, yeah, like don't. If you want to keep that client, keep up with them. But you're also not only just getting that repeat business from them, but the referral business from others as well. Like, hey, this agent is so on top of it. Like they want to gush about you. They take pride in sharing. Hey, this is my connection. This is my person, and I'm giving this to you. It's like if you have a great like a great hair stylist, or you have some or
Mhm.
something. I know our guys on this are like, okay, great. We're trying to I'm trying to relate it to the guys as well, but if you have something special and you got a great deal from somebody, or you had a great service, let's say you went to a restaurant and it was fantastic service, you want to share that experience. You want to take your friends there next time. You want to share that with others. You want to refer that hairstylist, to your friends so that you can say, hey, I gave you kind of this connection, this piece of it. So
Absolutely.
it's so key that you are still continuing that relationship after, or like Ali said, they'll be picking them up.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to add that Andrew and I do, and anybody that's listening, these are some things that you could very easily implement. In Myrtle Beach, we're a retirement market. So anybody that is, I think it's 65, sorry if it's not that age, but I think it's 65, and you have like government health care, the Medicare, and you're moving from one state to another state, there is some paperwork involved that you have to do to transfer it from state to state. So what we'll do is we'll set you up with, and she's actually a past client of ours. We'll set you up with her and she'll help you move all your paperwork over free of charge, and it's paid for by the insurance company. So that's an extra service that we offer. We'll just say like, hey, do you have to move your medical insurance over? We have someone that we can connect you with. If it works for you, hire them, great. If not, I think you can do it on your own, but that's not our specialty. We also get their birthdays. So we have a birthday calendar. We're telling them happy birthday. We try to do client events. So we'll make sure that they're on that list. We're inviting them to the client events that we were doing them quarterly last year, but we're kind of busy. So I think we're going to probably do biannual. We also, I know this sounds crazy, not all agents are going to want to do this, or maybe they don't have a house big enough, but, or maybe your house isn't really big enough because ours isn't now at this point, but we invite our past clients over for Thanksgiving. So a lot of
Oh, I love
clients,
that.
thanks, a lot of people move down here and their family's like far away, or, the whole
Yeah.
situation where it's like you only have one kid and it's a son and the son marries a daughter and now they go to the other in-laws house. So we invite them all for Thanksgiving. And last year we had like 35 people at our house for Thanksgiving,
Oh my
plus
gosh.
our family. So
That's amazing.
yeah. And some people didn't come and that was okay, but they were like,
Yeah.
wow, you invite us to your house for Thanksgiving? And we're like, well, we don't want you to be alone. And we kind of dragged you here. So like happy to help. That's another
Yeah.
way that you can do that. Or like we have had some people that have said, oh, I really love my home church. Do you have any church suggestions? Um,
Yeah.
we joke, but we have a whole row of converting Catholics that come with us to church now. So we're at a non-denominational church, and we have 10 past clients that come with us every single Sunday. So
Aw.
that could also, be something, and just give them a couple options. Or another thing I'll add, I'm like, in this and this and this. But another thing that we
Oh, I
do
love it.
is if we sell someone a home in, let's just say, Waterway Palms. We've sold several houses there, and we know 15 houses of people that do live there. So we're going to connect you with some of your neighbors. So we're going to say, hey, insert name, insert name. I know you just moved into the neighborhood. I wanted to introduce you to our other past clients, insert name, and they live over on blank, blank street. Take it from here. Hope you guys enjoy yourself. So now you're connecting the neighbors. And we've also done that in our neighborhood. So the neighborhood that we live in, we've sold 5 or 6 houses. And so we were actually at the pool the other day with some of our past clients that became great friends of ours. And they brought their sister and their brother-in-law, and we were all hanging out at the pool with the kids and everything. And then we texted one of our past clients who was in town because it's a part-time house. We said, hey, you want to meet us at the pool? So then he came by and he was like, you guys
Nice.
hired them too? And they were like, yeah, they're the best realtors ever. We love Andrew and Allie. And then another one saw us because he lives right by the pool. So then he came, and then that guy was also like, wait a minute, you also hired them?
And you're like telling it, and then now you have a fan of like a neighborhood of like fans that like
Yeah.
they know, hey, like all of us have used them. This is, they're recommended. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah. So those are a couple of suggestions you can use. Obviously, in the
Yes.
beginning, it's hard to get to that point, right? Like if you're just starting
Yeah.
out, but a lot of these things are free. It doesn't cost you any money to ask someone how you can support them. In their moving journey. Offer them vendors. Offer them if they're saying they're putting a pool in, say, hey, happy to help. These are some of the 3 pool vendors that some of our past clients have used. Like just doing those little things shows people that you really care and you're genuinely interested in their new life, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. I mean, just think about all if you've moved yourself or if you could imagine moving right now, all those different friction points that happen. And again, the things you don't think about necessarily, like, am I going to have enough boxes? Where am I going to find boxes? Like, where how am I going to have the time to organize stuff? How am I going to repaint? And like all these things, like, again, looking ahead of what are those friction points that could possibly happen and then offering it. It could just be simple as you're dropping off some moving boxes to them just because you have a stash or you had a client that just moved and they don't need them anymore. You can just recycle them to the next person. And that means a lot. I mean, I would be super impressed and so grateful if I was moving and someone's just like, here's moving boxes for you, got you taken care of. I'd be like,
Yeah.
yes, one last thing on my plate that I have to worry about. And it goes a
Yeah.
long way.
Or connect them with the cleaner. So if the last
Yes.
person moved out and they left it trashed and you're happy with the commission check that you got, which all real estate agents really should be because they pretty much all
Yeah.
have a comma, and
Yeah.
like send a cleaner for $150, $200. It's gonna
Yes.
make their
So
day.
worth it.
So I think we're running out of time. I
Yeah.
appreciate you so much. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think I'll just leave with this again. Just a reminder: it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to do everything at once. If you have no system or no process right now, it doesn't have to be everything at once. Again, understanding the foundational piece first of what is that path um, for transactions. What are those main milestones? Like we talked about, the offer accepted, inspection, appraisal, loan approval, and closing, and then thinking about layering in, okay, what are those friction points between then that we could possibly run into that might delay a deal or might cause some stress for the client. And then really, just have that practicality and have that practice every day of managing your transactions by, each day looking at your active deals and what are the next couple deadlines, what closings are coming up first, where are we at with those, making sure that they are on the right path. And then weekly, if you do have a preferred lender or preferred title company or attorney or somebody that you're working with on a regular basis with multiple deals, it'd be beneficial to make sure you schedule possibly a weekly like standing meeting with them. So you have that time to review if you do have multiple deals, you review that together.
Awesome. Thank you. You are so
Yeah.
informative and always so much fun every time we talk. And thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Truly. Hopefully I can come back in the future.
Anytime, sister. Thanks.
Awesome.